My name is John Campbell. I'm the Managing Director of Rabbit and Pork. Rabbit and Pork, bit of a strange name for a company. It's Cockney rhyming slang for talk, so that's where the name comes from. It's very difficult to name a company nowadays, and we'll see some examples of why it's quite difficult, and you need to be thinking about voice when it comes to naming products and companies. So we're part of the TP group. So within the TP group, there's 3 agencies. Roast, that looks after PPC and SEO. Kitty, web dev, and then Rabbit and Pork, which looks after anything with voice or conversational technology. And those are some of the clients we've worked with. We'll start with a video, which will hopefully play.
Alexa, how can I heat up my steak bake? Alexa, play Like a Virgin by Madonna. What's the name?
It's two of my favourite things, steak bakes from Greg's, but also Alexa. But we've kind of reached this situation now with voice technology that it's kind of so pertinent, it's in our lives, and it's the first name that our kids use. That, you know, that TV show there, which is a small TV show on the BBC, can make a joke about it, and everybody kind of understands the joke about how she thinks that the Breville toasty maker is an Alexa. And voice usage continues to rise. So the pandemic was actually quite good from a voice perspective. That we've seen more people continuing to use smart speakers at home. And the other thing that's starting to kind of come to fruition now is using voice to purchase or make a decision or get some information along the purchasing cycle. We're still a little bit far away from the potential of, you know, you asking Alexa to purchase a pizza oven or asking Alexa to buy a car. But it wasn't that kind of long ago when, you know, I'd be talking with my insurance clients, and they would be, you know, saying, nobody's ever going to buy insurance via a mobile device. Why do we need a mobile-friendly website, etc.? But that obviously is happening now, and so we can definitely see that voice purchasing will be something that you'll need to think about in the future. So I was here 3 years ago, and this slide, which is produced by VoiceBot, basically goes through what people are using their smart speakers for. And from everybody, a lot of people here are working on PPC and SEO. And the good news is that this data hasn't really changed, in that obviously people use their smart speaker for streaming music, listening to, you know, content, checking the weather, setting timers, doing all those practical things. But asking a question is still one of the most popular things to do with a smart speaker. So the way this data works is the dark blue is ever tried, the lighter blue is monthly, and then the daily stuff. So people will use smart speakers for different things, and then they'll kind of then hone in on their exact use case. But asking a question is really, really interesting, because essentially there's one result when it comes to voice search. And if you think about PPC or search, you know, we've got maybe, depending on what Google's feeling like, you know, 6 or 7 or 8, 9, 10 paid links, and then 10 blue links, and then we all know about all the featured snippets and the 0-click results nowadays. So you've got a really good opportunity when it comes to, you know, traditional web search on a phone or a tablet. When it comes to voice search, you know, you need to be the one that's providing that answer. And when it comes to that traditional search, as you know, when you're planning your campaigns or you're planning on what web pages you're going to build, there's a whole plethora of data out there. So there's Google Keyword Planner, there's Google Trends, the Search Console, the search feature tracking, so that you can make an informed decision about, am I going to create a web page? If I'm going to create a web page, what keywords I'm going to target? When it comes to voice search, we're still in the infancy, and Google and Amazon aren't really giving us much data. So you may have heard of this horrible statistic from years ago, which was 50% of searches are going to be done by voice in 2020, and it was never going to be the case. And the actual source of that statistic was an interview, which then got kind of relayed. But there isn't that much data out there for me to tell you, hey, there's 10,000 people today which will search for, you know, what's the best car for a first-time driver. We don't have that data at this moment in time. So what I've been doing over the last 2 years is looking at where can I find some snippets of data to be able to make informed decisions. So one of the areas that we know gets a lot of traffic are third-party Alexa skills. So Alexa skills are voice apps which add extra functionality beyond what a normal Alexa can do. So we build these voice apps for clients, and a popular one that was already out there, not one of ours, was the BBC Good Food. So we know the BBC Good Food in a month can get 800, 900,000 uses every single month. That's more people using the BBC Good Food on Alexa than use the app which they produce, etc. So you can kind of say, well, there's about this amount of traffic looking for recipe content, etc. And the other one is Alexa Answers. So Alexa Answers is a bit of a scary situation, is that if you ask an Alexa a question and Alexa goes, sorry, I can't answer that, that question goes over to the Alexa community, and then all the questions are kind of stacked up, and then anybody can go in there and type an answer to it. Now, it wasn't originally moderated in any form, and so there was lots of questions about, how can I stop my cat from climbing up my Christmas tree? And some of them were like, well, create an electric fence or cover it in tinfoil. So some was useful, some wasn't useful. It's moderated now. But the best bit about this is that this data is on the website, so we were able to scrape it. So we put tools together, and we've been scraping this data for the last year. So this is the website here. You can see there's a question here, like what number is Heart on Christmas on radio? Who is Paul Webster? What is a top fashion brand? And then people go in, write an answer, and then that answer gets upvoted and downvoted. So a little bit of UiPath and a few scraping tools, and you can scrape all that information. So it's available US, Canada, UK. And in 2021, about 250,000 questions were kind of answered, and Alexa dipped into this pot of data 20 million times. Now, this is a very, very small selection of questions that go to Alexa. So this is just this stuff that Alexa couldn't answer the first time somebody asked that question to Alexa. So we scrape all that information and we get the data. So exact keyword data, which is a bit strange considering when we normally look in keyword tool, Google normally kind of, tries to take out any potential PII information, plurals and singles are all kind of bunched into one number, and it's always like 4,400 searches per month. Whereas with our voice search data, we get exact match, we get any speech errors. So that's maybe where you'd say Grand Prix and it spells pre rather than Prix. We can tell whether somebody's answered it or not answered it, and we get the exact date and timestamp to the second that question was asked by the user. So we start to get some really, really kind of interesting insights, etc., about what people are searching for according to the time of the day. So the first thing, as you'd expect, is the majority of times people would always start their, a question to Alexa or to a Google device with a who, what, where, and why, and was. So when you're thinking about optimizing copy on your website, so maybe that's the FAQs that sit on your product pages, or FAQs on specific FAQ sections of your website, you always want to be thinking about the title tags and the H tags on your heading tags on your page, and start them with who, what, where. So how would a user ask this question, rather than you kind of writing out the exact answer? So it could be, for example, how many pizzas can I cook in my oven in 10 minutes? You'd write that out exactly, rather than saying pizza cooking capacity data. So you need to be writing copy on your website in the way that somebody would voice search for it using. And so often this is actually, when you're doing your keyphrase research, saying it out loud. So when I do my keyphrase research, I say them out loud and reword as I would say something rather than typing it. So time of the day is really interesting, is that we can see we've got these early risers, the parents cooking at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, or the workers, and the usage of Alexa steadily increases over time. We get a couple of little increases, so there'll be one kind of, got kids coming home from school, and then we've got the kind of up to about 8, 9 o'clock at night. We have this data split over different categories. So if you look at sports data, so people asking questions about sport, you see the 3 p.m. kickoffs and the 8 p.m. kickoffs when people start asking Alexa questions about football players, etc. Or when it's been Love Island, you can see the spikes. The Friday night national lottery spike for people asking, what the questions was or what the jackpot was. office, etc. And time of the day has changed. So traditionally, the usage of Alexa, I mean, I try to use the Alexa in the office and just people just shout at me all the time because they want to listen to music. So traditionally, there was kind of this usage in the morning. Everybody would go to work, and then you start to use your Alexa or your smart device when you come back home. So you can see that was in 2019. 2020 and 2021, we've seen there's been much more usage during the day because obviously people are at home. It's possible to use your smart speaker in an environment like that rather than in an open office. So this continues to evolve and it continues to change as well. And we have this data split out by category, as I was mentioning, by day, and we've also got it by 2022, which is coming up soon. So what we found is that voice searches are very much kind of an in-the-moment thing. So it's kind of like this idea of second screening. Or something's happened in your house, and then you kind of turn to your phone, but now people are turning to Alexa. So these dates are the exact timestamps of when people made these searches. So who are the commentators at Wimbledon was on the first day of Wimbledon. So it was kind of 3 o'clock. So it was, when the first highlights were on and they were asking those questions. I like this one. Alexa, when is the last episode of Love Island 2020? I'm not sure if that's somebody just saying there's been too many, when does it start? Or somebody wants to know exactly when the last one is. But that was the night before the final episode. And throughout that whole month, you can see these questions about people who I don't know on an ongoing basis. And from an Alexa Answers perspective, some of those questions were, I've never watched the show, but like one person dates another person or something. And the questions were like, who's dating this person? And as fast as people were answering the questions, obviously it was out of date because they kept swapping dates or something. Who's Beth Mead? So that's the day after the women win the Euros. And then again, when Olivia Newton-John passed away, people were asking questions, or they would probably be asking Alexa to play some songs from her, etc. So you need to think about what's happening in the moment and pre-plan your content about what those things could happen in the future. So for many brands, that might be, well, I'm not involved with TV or I'm not involved with sporting events. But often products that you use will be used according to times, dates, time of the year, events. It might be Christmas, it might be Easter, it might be summer events, or maybe your product needs to have different things done to it, during winter and during summer, etc. So you want to pre-think about these questions that could come up and potentially then optimize for them. So what does demand look like? So we can actually get some search volume data. So the way that we do this is we use what we can get. It's on Alexa Answers. It has a little data point which says how many times has Alexa shared that answer. So somebody asked the question, 2 days later, another person comes in and answers that question. And then from that day that they've answered it, we then see how many times that's been shared. So I'm scraping the data on every single month. So I'm now kind of getting monthly data. But what you'll see is there'll be some key phrases which we'll get 100,000 voice searches in 2 days. And that will be around, originally it was Wordle. So people cheating at Wordle, say basically an Alexa, what's a 5-letter word that begins with CH? Lottery and sporting events. And then other ones are kind of, we see on a constant basis, we get 200-300 people asking for it. So interestingly here, how long do I cook a 5-kilo turkey? 4,000 searches. If I took that exact key phrase, placed into the keyword tool, zip, nothing. So, from an SEO or PPC point of view, you might think this is a low value kind of key phrase from, building on the website. But you need to put that content on your website because Google and Alexa scrape the information from your website to create their voice search results. Where can I watch? Huge amount of people asking, where can I watch this particular series? Where can I watch this episode? When's the next episode out? And obviously that data comes up and down. And then we can see slightly other key phrases where, there's still more people searching for this on Google via their laptop or by their phone rather than on voice search. So this data, because I'm scraping it, I can't sell it. So you can go to this link here, or you can go on the website, or if my SEO is half decent, you can just search for voice search key phrase tool. And in here, we've got the question, we've got the category, and we've got the exact answer. If it says null, it means that nobody has gone through and answered that question. So I think I did an update about 2 or 3 months ago. We're going to have a big update soon. There's about maybe 100,000 key phrases in this data set at this moment in time. I don't put the voice search numbers in there, and we have the exact dates and the exact timestamps. So we've been working with some kind of TV companies to tell them about, this is when your TV show is on. These are the things that people were searching for at this exact amount of time. This is exactly where it happened. The TV one is really interesting because Amazon and a lot of other companies are now producing TVs where the Alexa is in the TV. So then people then could say, rather than saying, oh, who plays this particular actor on Stranger Things, you could say, who's that? And because Alexa is built into the TV and they have exact data of what actor is on the screen at that exact point in time, it's going to be able to say, oh, this person's on TV, or what's that song that's playing at the moment? They have the kind of the background data on that. So how would you start to optimize voice search? So you think that people are Googling and voice searching for key phrases related to your business. So before you think about those generics, you need to think about the brands side of things and the product naming side of things. So I don't know if anybody, it's maybe a little bit small to say. Does anybody know how you say the name of that first company, which is written on the side of the ship? Anybody from Germany? Do you know? Hurtigruten. So, project with Hurtigruten was me going around showing this word to people and going, can you say that? And I go, say what? What's written on the piece of paper? So some people say Hurtigruten, which is the Norwegians, Hurtigruten, all of these different ways of saying it. It's quite a big brand. They do cruises to kind of Antarctica and down to all over Norway, etc. So when you ask Alexa that question, it doesn't have a clue. You ask Google, Google gets it. When Google says Hurtigruten back, it pronounces it totally different. So this can happen if you're kind of a brand which is on the cusp of being well known, or if you're a brand new brand and your kind of brand hasn't been ingested into Alexa and Google's lexicon or into their natural language processing. So a good way to think about this is if you're ever doing SEO and you've got your brand name and you're not getting site links, or you're not kind of getting the knowledge panel, you need your brand needs to be of a certain size or a certain stature to be able to be recognized by Google or by Alexa. And if you've got a brand, the AA, well, the AA here is something different to what it is in America, then, or if you're naming your brand and you call your brand phonetically something that sounds like another brand, you're going to have some problems, because which one is it going to mean? The next one is that Google could actually understand the word and it could do the speech to text correctly. So, hey Google, play Encanto soundtrack. But what's Encanto? So I know Encanto as the latest Disney, not the latest, but the Disney kind of movie. But for Google, the day before that came out, Encanto is a terrible opera album by some Spanish singer. So as soon as Encanto came out and you were like, hey Google, play Encanto, it started playing opera and the kids are going nuts. They want to hear, Mirabelle, they want to hear the songs from Bruno, etc. So the idea is that although you might plan your marketing up to this point, the Google Assistant is not manual. There's not somebody kind of saying, if somebody says that, say that. It's all built on machine learning and looking at Google's knowledge graphs to be able to take that information. And when it comes to FMCG, they're running out of names for products. So this is milk. This is not milk. It's not made from cows. And so I was kind of asking Google this, and then somebody in the office was like, no, you say M-Y-L-K. That's how you say it. So if you say, hey, Google, what's M-Y-L-K? Yeah, it gets it. If you say, hey, Google, what's milk? It goes, it comes from a cow. You buy it. So you then think about this. If, you Sainsbury's or any of the shops have kind of got voice recognition within their apps or in their phones, how's it going to work? So we saw this as well with Cadbury's. They launched their latest vegan-friendly plant bar, and just Google could not get its head around it. It was thinking you were saying something else. 8 weeks after, when that information was all being crawled, lots of people have been Googling plant bar, lots of people have been typing it into Google, it then was like, this plant bar means this product, etc. So yeah, when you're naming your product, you've got all these checks that you need to normally make when you're naming your product, which is, is it easy to spell? Is it easy to remember? Is it trademarked and stuff like that? Voice has also got to be a consideration to make sure that people can easily say your name. And if you want to check this, it's as simple as just literally getting a Google or an Alexa device and asking that question. The one thing with the Hertogrutum was that everybody who we talked to in the marketing team, they knew how to say it. So that's why we had to source 50 different people from around the country saying it, and different accents it picked up and other accents it wouldn't pick up. So how would you start to create your voice search key phrase list? So I don't know why it says TV there, but that should be the tool. So yeah, first thing to do is head over to the website, put a key phrase in, and start to see, if there are any key phrases that include your product. It's a small key phrase set, so one of the things you could do is use a proxy product. So say, for example, it's oat milk. There might be not much data about oat milk, but you just put normal milk in, and the things that people will be searching for and related for should be similar. Answer the public, very popular tool. So you basically put in a seed key phrase. So in this example, it's Beth Mead, and then it kind of gives you lots of different questions that are related. So like, who does Beth Mead play for? What boots does she wear? Where does she come from, etc. So these key phrases are more generally generated from them scraping Google autocomplete in the Google PPA. So people also ask, but these key phrases tend to be more flavored towards what I'd say somebody would be voice searching for. A little hack, if you're on people also search, they normally give you 4 at a time. Click the last one, click it again, it loads more. Click the last one, loads again, click again, click again. There's tools out there that scrape this automatically for you. But what it's just doing is start with a seed key phrase, go through that process, and then you've got your big list of key phrases. So the next thing to think is about, well, I've got my key phrases or I know my product. How is it that the Google Assistant or Alexa answers those questions? So we know from an SEO point of view or from a traditional search point of view is that, okay, if it's a key phrase that has a product intent, Google's going to show me shopping listings, it's going to be showing me some PPC ads, it's going to show me 10 product listings. And those 10 product listings are most likely going to be e-commerce websites, etc. It's similar for Alexa and Google. So for Google, they rely mainly on answer box content. So when you search for something on Google, you normally get a box which appears at the top of the search results. So majority of the time, 80% of the time, Google is just reading out that information. But say, for example, your question is, a recipe question, then they're going to go through the recipe content. So you need to make sure you've got recipe schema on your website. If your question is quite specific, like how old is the Queen, or how many goals did X score last year, Google will often pull information from their knowledge graph. So rather than the voice search being, according to the bbc.co.uk and then reading out the answer, they'll just read out the answer and go, the Queen is 92. If your key phrase group keeps hitting knowledge graphs, you're going to really struggle to get some search results on that, because Google's always going to prioritize a knowledge graph result over a result from your website. Now, Amazon, obviously, they're not crawling and scraping the web, so they don't have a search engine to rely on. So they tend to do more kind of one-to-one partnerships. So anything with a medical-related intent, they have a direct feed from the NHS website, and they pull that information from there. Yell and Yext provide their local listings. Anything that has any product flavor intent, they obviously go, here, you can buy it from Amazon. Alexa answers. And sometimes they will then say, hey, this Alexa skill provides the answer. Do you want to open the Alexa skill and then go into that interaction? So what you need to do is take those key phrases and start to do a bit of a kind of a manual test in the same way you do a manual test on Google. So, hey Google, who does Beth Mead play for? Okay, Beth Mead's current teams are England and Arsenal LFC, but that's a knowledge graph. They've not said according to arsenal.com or according to a particular website. So knowledge graph is going to be really hard for you to overtake. Answer box content, well, here we go. Google doesn't have an answer. So here's an opportunity to build some content on your website to answer that. And then maybe after a couple of weeks, Google will then say, oh, according to, and then your website, and then read out that information. And yeah, with Alexa, say for example, where, then Alexa's going to go to local listings. So then trying to optimize, for this is going to be more about optimizing your local listings. So if you manage to gain that voice search result, it's nice. It's an impression. It's a radio ad. At the moment, Google will say that answer, they'll stop, and that will be it. The user sometimes gets a link sent to their phone, and they click that link, and you'll be able to see those coming through in your Google Analytics, etc. But at the moment, it's very much kind of a, can I own that listing and get that visibility? So if you've decided you want to optimize for it, how do you actually do this? So putting on your SEO hat, you got to think about, am I going to create one single page on my website to target this key phrase? So therefore, my URL, my title tag, my H1 is all focused on, what football boots does Cristiano Ronaldo wear? Or it might be that you feel like this key phrase isn't that difficult to optimize for. So you then can have one little snippet with a H2 and a paragraph tag answering that question. And so you'll often see on if you go in a car insurance page, if you go to Money Supermarket or Confused.com or any of those, they'll have car insurance, they'll have a H1, they'll have a paragraph, some content, and then further down the page, they'll have these expanding boxes, and they've all H2 answer, H2 answer, H2 answer, and they're just going after these answer box results and the voice search results. If you've got this kind of content in there, you can put FAQ schema behind it, but from our testing, the FAQ schema doesn't really have much of an impact. So if you're interested in this, there's a kind of a do's and don'ts of voice search when it comes to copy. So this is looking at kind of the copy optimization side of things. Wrote with the proof content team. Again, on this, you need to think about how does your answer sound. So remember, Google or Alexa is going to be reading these answers out loud. So content that is read out loud sounds different to kind of content that you read and you just have in your head. So you need to make sure that it makes sense from that point of view. Okay. So where do I feel the opportunity is? So I think the opportunity is very much thinking about what are these real life scenarios that spark voice searches. So this is all real data from the report. So TV, who plays this character on this specific TV? Who is Tractor Ted? Who are the new question and sport presenters? So if you were responsible for writing that press release, which is going on the BBC sport website, on the BBC website, make sure that some of the copy that's inside the new presenters are X, Y, and Z. Food, obviously, there's the kind of give me a recipe idea, but there's also kind of I need to get this answer because my hands are dirty, or I'm holding this and I'm holding that. So what is the cooking temperature report? How do you cook bok choy? How long do you cook Yorkshire puddings for, etc.? Or cleaning, you're holding a child, there's stains everywhere. They need to answer these questions quickly. Events, so throughout the year they won't have much value, but there'll be a high amount of usage, etc. Who brings the Easter eggs? It's obviously a child asking who that is. Hopefully it says the Easter Bunny. And then homework. There's a huge amount of kids which are going to be dumb because they just ask Alexa all their questions and all that, and they get all their answers, etc. So at the moment, it'd be very much answer that question. You get your little impression. People now know who your brand is because they said your brand out there. But what Amazon want to really do is they want to move to a future where the assistant becomes proactive and it starts to do things as a result of your interaction. So how long do you cook frozen Yorkshire puddings? According to auntbessies.co.uk, it takes 5 minutes to cook frozen Yorkshire puddings at 200. So what would happen in the future is if Aunt Bessie's built an Alexa skill, they can turn a voice search into a conversation. So you'd go, Alexa, how long do you cook frozen Yorkshire puddings? And then Alexa goes, the Aunt Bessie Alexa skill has the answer to that question. And it also has some further content as a conversation which will help you. So here's the Alexa skill. It takes 5 minutes, blah, blah, blah. Do you want me to set a timer? Great, I've just set a timer. So an Alexa skill can set timers on behalf of users. We also then might say, hey, do you need to buy some more Yorkshire puddings? Great, yeah, let's add it to your cart for your next Amazon order, etc. Or how about next time you use the dry mix, etc., and we can actually ship that dry mix to you. Is that okay? Yes. Do you want me to take payment via your Amazon Pay account? Done. So we've gone from a generic question to an interaction with a brand through to a purchase. The idea here is that you need to get people to come into your Alexa skill, and once they've come into your Alexa skill once, you can then keep putting your hand up and say, hey, I know the answer to that one. I know the answer to that one. So there's a coffee Alexa skill in America, and they just get you in to use it once, and then it has all the questions. They've got this database of 10,000 questions that anybody has about coffee. If you ask Alexa any of them, that skill opens. If I ask them, it doesn't, because you always have to have that interaction with that skill first. So one of the skills that we've built is with a customer service one. So we build that for LV, and we can see that people ask that. So you can imagine a customer service skill where, it answers common questions about your insurance. Maybe you can request a callback if the Alexa skill can't answer it. We use a center phone feature. So if we have a conversation with a customer and then they go, oh, I need to make a claim. We go, okay, we're not going to do a claim over voice. I've sent the form to your phone, and then the form goes through their phone. And the other thing we can do is account linked. So if you have an account, so yours have a Spotify account. So when you talk to Alexa, it knows it's your Spotify account. We can do the same with anybody that has any sort of personal account. So if you've got an account with Sky, you can link it with an Alexa skill, and then you'll be able to answer questions out. When's my renewal? How much do I pay per month, etc. And then the Alexa will be able to grab that information from your account and then pull it back. There's so many people asking Alexa about food waste and freezing. So, Alexa, can you freeze I don't know why it's always Yorkshire puddings. Can you freeze wine? Who's freezing their wine? And then obviously, how long can you keep a turkey? I think that was related to when they cancelled Christmas and everybody had massive turkeys and they had to freeze them. So for that one, it's kind of, we can answer the question, you can freeze a turkey up to 6 months, but then can the Alexa skill do something a little bit more useful? So could it go, and we're going to give you some instructions. So first of all, scrape off all the fat, put it in a plastic bag and seal it. Okay. Could you then set a reminder? So then the Alexa sets a proactive reminder in 3 months' time to go, diddling, that turkey's got 3 months until you need to eat it, etc. Can it set some defrost timers? Can it give you some meal ideas, etc.? So who should be owning this type of content? So that could be a Tesco, a BBC, or an LG or something. You could have this as, and they're probably already producing some of this content from a content marketing side of you and placing it on their website. But that's very much the user goes there, reads it, whereas it'd be much more engaging for them to have a back and forth interaction with that brand. How many brands can say that they have a conversation with a customer in their home on a daily basis? Not many. So I started a bit early, but we're going to have some questions. We're going to have some time for some questions. So what's coming in the future? And I wasn't here yesterday, but I heard the metaverse was mentioned. So I haven't included it in here, but I'll add it on at the end. But essentially, the first thing that's coming is promoted skills. So Amazon and Google at the moment don't do anything on the paid search with voice. So you can't pay for, when anybody says, hey, Google, what's the best toothpaste? You can't pay for an audio advert to say, here's an advert from Colgate. This is coming through. So this is any of the Echo shows with the screens. If you've just got your Echo show in the background, it normally goes through a bit of a kind of a carousel of weather, news, maybe some of your photos. And now they're going to show this for 30 seconds, which is a full screen ad. At home fitness, get easy to follow daily workouts. Alexa, open at home fitness, sponsored button, or you click it. So you can imagine this being recipe ideas from Tesco. So it's kind of like digital out of home, in home. You need an Alexa skill, and then this will be through the Amazon advertisement platform. So you'll be able to pay. So there's not many chances to kind of get an advert on a screen that's in the home apart from TV, which is obviously a little bit more expensive. So for this, you need to build an Alexa skill experience, but that's about it on the minimum requirement. And then there'll be targeting settings as we normally know. So it'll be like location, any of the information that Amazon have about you. So you can imagine, if you've been browsing a particular section of the Amazon website, they'll say, hey, this user's, is in the possible purchase cycle, purchase for a bike, etc. So you then be able to say, I want to target people who are interested in buying bikes. The next one is synthesized voices. So this has been in the news for a few different examples. So Val Kilmer was in Top Gun, and he can't speak as well as he used to. He has to use a voice box. And so synthetic voices is taking basically an existing voice or making a new voice and then allowing us as developers to use it programmatically. So by programmatically, I mean code. I can type something and then I get an MP3 back and then it plays. So Alexa's voice is a programmatic generated voice. So what we're seeing is brands thinking, right, we're going to pay for a voice to be created and then we can use that voice across advertising, across Alexa skills, across kind of digital interactions. So KFC, there's a digitalized version of the kernel. So I think they're on their 5th kernel now, so they keep getting new actors to kind of do the voiceover for the kernel. So they basically digitized the kernel's voice, and they're using it in America on kind of dynamically generated audio ads. So they have a radio ad, and he's able to now say, oh, we've got our chicken bucket offer, get it from, and because there's so many KFCs, they're not going to get a voiceover artist to say every single deal, every single location. They can use the voiceover artist. Sorry, they can use the synthetic voice to create that audio on the fly, change the pricing, change the offer, add in promo codes, etc. So synthetic voices is there's some ethical questions about it, because obviously if you can start to clone somebody's voice, then that means that, my voice is a password, which you might have with your banking, is going to be suspect to being hacked, etc. And the voiceover artists are kind of saying, well, I don't want to get paid for 2 hours of training this system, and then I don't get all the extra kind of work, which I would get normally standing in a recording booth. So it's quite an interesting area. Custom assistance. So there's a few different ways of doing this. So this is Amazon partnering with Disney. So in this example, they've actually allow you to change the wake word. So the wake word on a smart speaker is Hey Google, Hey Alexa, etc. So you can buy this plugin or Alexa skill app, and then at home you then can go Hey Disney. So rather than going Hey Google, Hey Alexa, you can go Hey Disney, and then majority of the content is then replaced. So rather than it being Alexa's voice telling you the weather or telling you the time, it's Mickey Mouse or it's Buzz Lightyear doing your kind of morning alarms, etc. They've also then placed these devices in the hotels at Disneyland. So if you're in one of the rooms, you'll have this device, and you'll be able to just say, hey Disney, turn the lights on. Hey Disney, what's my schedule for today, etc. So this is built on the Amazon tech stack, but what we're seeing now is that the tools that have been developed by Amazon and Google and all these different companies are now kind of trickling down. So as a brand, if you want to create your own assistant, it's really kind of easy to get kind of voice recognition, natural language processing, and synthetic voices and put it into your own hardware now. Whereas 10 years ago, it was quite difficult to create this, but the tools are now coming down to us. So related to that is Alexa smart properties. So Rabbit and Pork were one of a handful of the smart properties solution providers here in the UK and in the EU. So this allows us to take Amazon devices and then install them into business locations. There's 3 main areas that we're looking at the moment. So hospitality, which would be in a hotel like this, or it might be at a football club, or it might be at a race course or a cricket ground in the corporate sponsor boxes. Senior living, so care homes, and then hospitals, so Care homes is coming soon. Hospitals will be next year, most likely here in the UK. These are all live in America. And in this example, you've kind of got a hybrid Alexa. So you've got Alexa that does all the things that you normally do at home, like answering questions, setting timers or weather. But then, because it's installed in a specific location, we can overtake any commands. So if they said in a hotel, hey, hey, can you recommend me a restaurant? Alexa would normally go to yell and read out 3 listings. We can take over that and go, oh, the restaurant's on the 5th floor and there's space for tonight at 8 p.m. Do you want to make a booking? Yes. Okay. Because we know what room it is in, we can hook it up to the project management, the PMS system here in the hotel. And then we know the who's staying in that room at that time, and then we can make the booking, etc. Senior living location, it'd be turning on the lights, or we're working with a company called Ascom who do all the internal communication handsets in care homes. So you could say, Alexa, I need some water. We then can route that question through to the team, and then the team then can get that water for that user. And in the last case, it would be hospitals, so then we kind of entertainment, or it would also be drop-ins. So they were using these Alexa devices during COVID in some of the hospitals in New York. So rather than having to get all suited up in the PPE and walk into the room, the doctors were able to kind of do a video drop-in into the room, and they were able to then have a conversation back and forth with the patient, etc. So these kind of versions of Alexa are kind of a little bit kind of custom and standardized, but it still means that customers who be in these hotels could be asking questions about your products or things to do, etc. Or there might be, if you're a content provider, could you provide some of this content custom to those locations? And so the last one, which is a horrible word for me to say, interoperability. So interoperability essentially is coming down the line. And it's come from 2 reasons. So the Digital Service Act, which is some EU regulation, and then the Open Voice Network. So we've got this same situation. You remember years ago when Microsoft got done because they kept installing Internet Explorer with Windows, and kind of from a competition point of view, people were going, this is not great, I want to have a different Internet Explorer. So here it's the same thing. It's the idea of, why do I have to speak to this assistant only on this device? And so in my house, obviously I've got both, but I end up talking to the wrong one at the same time. So in the future, they want the ability to have one assistant invoke another assistant. So you'd be able to say, Alexa, get Google, or Alexa, get the Met weather, and then you could have a conversation with another assistant, etc. So the idea is it's meaning that the assistant is not limited to the hardware. And so it's going to happen. It's going to happen in Germany first of all. So basically, your Alexa will have to enable their rivals to have internet on there. Accessibility on that hardware device. So then that could mean that brands will start creating their own custom assistants, but not have to worry about the hardware, because the hardware is already out there. That's Amazon, it's Google, it's your phone, etc. And the Open Voice Network is kind of a working group that we're part of, which is trying to put some standards together so that could happen in the future. I didn't add the last one in there, which was about the metaverse. I heard it was mentioned, but whatever that will be in the future, voice will be part of it. So if you've got goggles on or if you've got hand sticks, you're not going to be typing, you're not going to be controlling things. So voice recognition and voice control is going to be really important there. And then also what they're kind of coining is kind of voice changing synthetic voices. So you might not want to use your voice directly through. So there might be in the future that they have like instant kind of synthetic voices. So as I'm talking, it goes through the system, goes through there, and then anybody else who's listening to me while I'm playing a game or having a conference gets a totally different accent. Or maybe it's my accent, but I'm speaking French, which nobody wants to hear, I can tell you that. So I started a bit early, but we've got some time for some questions. That's that link again to the voice key phrase tool. Alongside that is a white paper. So the white paper goes through all of those different categories of data, and it also goes through kind of some of the optimization techniques as well. So I'll leave it there, and hopefully there will be some questions. And if you want to put your hands up for a question, that would be great. Thank you. Any questions? One. Thank you.
Okay, so you mentioned about the problem with voice recognition. So this has been actually for almost all the time of those platforms that are facing this kind of problem. Do you know, is any project or something that they are going to improve this correctness?
Yeah, so the voice recognition problem of me understanding your accent, and then therefore how can Google transpose that? Yeah. So there's a couple of things. So the training data that they've done is based on what we call atypical speech. Atypical speech is how the majority of people talk at this moment in time. So they're working on getting data sets of different people. So like people with an accent from Scotland or from Outer Hebrides or somewhere like that. But they're also getting, I guess you're not English isn't your first language. They're getting data sets of people speaking different languages who from different locations. So it's all about the training data, basically. They concentrated on training these systems with the most common use case. Obviously, that's going to be kind of the native population. And so that's how they're going to improve it. And they're also doing a project with people who've got Down syndrome. And so anybody who's Down syndrome can't use an Alexa speaker because they can't recognize them. So they're crowdsourcing people with Down syndromes to kind of read out training data to be put into that. And that's one thing. And then the other thing is just the microphones. They can get better quality microphones and do some echo cancelling before it goes to Amazon. That would work, yeah. And the one other thing is at the moment, if you switch off your internet and you go, Alexa, it will recognize you, and then it'll go, I can't do anything. Everything is streamed to the internet. So they might do something in the future where they do some voice recognition on the device, and then that will make it quicker. And then if it's struggling, then they'll send it up to the internet, and then they can do more processing. But yeah, it's still not quite there. And if you don't have like an atypical accent, yeah, it struggles with me sometimes as well. Any other questions? Hi.
Hey, I have a couple quick questions. So firstly, on the voice search key phrase tool, can you search based on the answer? So our brand Uni, can we look up Uni and see what people are asking where the answer is Uni?
Yeah, you could. I've not really thought about that. Yeah. So that could be somebody asked a generic question. Mm-hmm. Hey, I was speaking to a colleague before. Hey, what's the best pizza oven out there? Anyone wants a pizza oven? These are the guys. They've got discount codes. But yeah, you could then search it that way. And if somebody's very politely said, "Oh, I have an Umi oven," yeah, then you could do it that way, etc. Yeah.
Cool. Other question, just because I'm curious, do you know kind of the percent breakdown of like Siri versus Alexa searches?
Yeah, so nothing on Siri because Apple just do not give anything. There's no development platform for Siri or anything like that. And the only kind of data we have is on how many devices. So here in the UK, we're still about 60% of the devices are Alexa ones. And then I think it's about 30% Google, and then a load of them are the other ones. But no, there's nothing at a keyword level. And that's why it's sometimes hard to kind of say this many people are going to be hearing your advert, etc. at this moment in time. But yeah, generally, if you build something, then you start to get the data. It's a case of taking that leap. Yeah. And the one other thing that's interesting about Siri is that on a phone, it's not always an assistant. It's more of a shortcut. So although the user's saying, "Oh, I'm asking this question," it then sometimes just takes you through to the search results, and then it's just serviced by traditional SEO and traditional PPC. So that is one of the reasons why, if you ever looked at like keyword length, it's got longer. Keyword length has got longer over the last kind of few years because more people are using just basically text to speech on their phone, which is a shortcut. Whereas voice search, obviously there's no screen, so it just reads out that one answer. But yeah, not too much data, unfortunately.
That's useful. Thank you. Really interesting.
Any other questions? We've got one.
Hello.
Hi.
Do you have any view on where this is heading with the travel industry?
With travel?
Yeah.
So hopefully lots of Alexas in hotel rooms, etc. Google tried to do like a travel assistant, which is the idea of kind of flight planning, and Skyscanner were one of the early companies to build an Alexa skill. And you might think it's quite easy, hey, flights from here to there, these dates, etc. But there's just so many combinations of airports and routes, etc. And also, when you're looking at flights, it's actually a very visual thing, so you need to kind of look through it. Same with hotels. So you could imagine a future where there's an assistant that you can talk to and you can arrange and it can give you these options. But it's whether there's going to be enough trust from the user to say that they're giving you the best deal or they're giving you the best, option. There's a few companies that are doubling down. So TripAdvisor built a number of Alexa skills in partnerships with tourism boards. So they've done a partnership with Dubai. So there's an Alexa skill, which is kind of the sights and the sounds of is it Dubai or Abu Dhabi, I think it is. And so the idea there is that you can then ask Alexa, get a flavour for what there is to do in Dubai, etc. It's all very much content marketing led. To get through to that, assistant led kind of proactive on travel will be very hard. The Google Assistant does great things when it kind of looks through your emails, so then it gets when your flights are, and it'll tell you, hey, you need to then set off for this. And if I ask my Google Assistant at home, when's my next flight, it gives that information automatically. But that's because I've got my Gmail, I've got my Google account, I've got everything hooked up. But yeah, travel is an interesting one, but hopefully the hotels would be. And also look at actually this conference when it happened last time, the lady from KLM, she showed some great examples of what KLM were doing with WhatsApp, with the Google Assistant and stuff like that. But they were using it for very specific use cases. So they had a WhatsApp chatbot where the family all went into a group chat, and then the KLM assistant would say, hey, the flight's on time, the flight's taking off, the flight's about to land. And so then all of your family would then be able to see, as and when that kind of flight was coming back. So have a look at some of the KLM would be doing in travel.
Thank you.
Great. Any more questions? I'll be back later if there's any questions that anybody has. But great. Thanks very much for your time. Have a good afternoon.